This is my 4-stroke nitro-powered Tamiya Ford Aeromax, and it's pretty awesome. This is a project I built when I was working at RC Car Action magazine, and at the time, nitro-power was really popular. OS Engines came out with a really cool 4-stroke engine that was a neat twist on the category. I built 2 projects with 4-stroke engines. One was a T-Max with a 40 size engine, and this one with a 26. Putting a nitro engine in an 18-wheeler is nothing new. Before this truck was built, there had been a few that were done in the past, but this one has a 4-stroke engine and a couple features that really made it stand out. The body is the stock Tamiya unit. Before painting it, I took the time to cut the area behind the grill away so that air can flow through the body and get to the engine inside. When I was done with that modification, I cleaned everything up and I painted it with Tamiya black paint and Tamiya's gunmetal paint. One standout feature on the truck are the wheels. These wheels are from Hardcore Racing and they were designed for sedans. Now the back wheels fit on with no modifications whatsoever. They just needed some custom spacers and some custom nuts to actually fit them to the axles, whereas the front ones had to be modified slightly. So I took the centers of the wheels, machined them out so that they can accept bearings, and now they ride on the stock front axle. Another standout feature is the custom 4-link suspension. Now you might be saying, why'd you put a 4-link suspension on there? And I say, why not? I just really wanted to make the truck different and make it stand out. And this was a great way to do that. The suspension is made up of some rod ends, various turnbuckles, some custom aluminum parts, and some custom carbon fiber parts. And the entire chassis supported by Team Associated TC3 shocks. This is the star of the show, and this is OS Engines 26 size 4-stroke car engine, and it is the pull start version. There was 2 reasons why I wanted to use this engine in an 18-wheeler. 1, it doesn't need a tuned exhaust to run properly, and 2, it doesn't need to constantly be revved all the time to keep it going. 2 great things for a scale build. 4-stroke engines don't have a lot of RPM, so I needed something special to get this truck up and running to a reasonable speed with a low RPM. So I took a gear cluster and clutch bell out of a Kyosho Madforce and installed it in the truck. It's an automatic unit. I can set the shift points where I need them to be, and it does a great job at doing what it's supposed to do. Now the other thing about a nitro car is you need to have brakes to slow it down. So I took, again, disc brakes from a Kyosho A-scale buggy, and I installed them on the front side of the gear cluster. Now I could have gotten away with a single disc brake because this truck isn't very heavy. It doesn't really need a lot of stopping power, but let's face it, 2 brake discs look way cooler than 1 brake disc. I wanted this 18-wheeler to be able to pull a trailer, and you can't back up a nitro 18-wheeler without a reverse gear. So I found an HPI Savage reversing unit, mounted it to the chassis, and put it in line with the drivetrain. Now I can use the servo in front of the engine to change from forward to reverse gear. When I was done with the trailer, I didn't want to have to disconnect it by hand. I wanted to do that with the radio. So I took some parts and pieces from Tamiya's motorized support leg unit and used that to put a servo in the chassis and connect it to the 5th wheel. Now I can unhook the trailer using the radio instead of my finger. The only problem with this engine from OS is that they didn't add extra fins for better cooling on the engine when it was being used in a car. So you have to run a fan in order to get airflow over the engine to keep it cool. So I used this brushless fan in the front of the chassis to pull air in from the grill area and blow it over the engine. Unfortunately, it didn't have enough airflow to keep the engine running cool, and it quickly overheated when we were doing the photo shoot. To me, the second coolest feature of this truck is the exhaust system. It is super scale, it's functional, it looks awesome, and at the time I was going to make the exhaust system myself, but I just didn't have the way to do it properly. So I went to my buddy Michael for the job. Now at the time he had a tuned pipe company that made pipes with a cool side pipe feature after the stinger, and he used some of those bits and pieces to make the exhaust system for this truck. All I had to do was make a custom header that ran from the engine to the pipe. 18-wheelers have big fuel tanks on the side of the chassis to provide the fuel for their engine, and I wanted this truck to have the same thing. So I machined my own fuel tanks out of aluminum tube, some caps that I machined for the end out of aluminum, and I epoxied them in place. One side, which is the side you're seeing now, provided the fuel for the engine, and on the other side was another tank that was supposed to hold smoke oil for a smoke unit that I just couldn't get to work properly. This is the part where I'm supposed to tell you, let's check out this sucker in action, but to be honest, it hasn't run for 17 years, and that is not going to happen. I'd want to go through the engine, make sure everything's okay, check a couple things on the chassis, maybe even update a few things, but here's the deal. This was built for the December 2005 issue of Car Action. This is the truck from the magazine, and this is how it was in the magazine, and I'd like to keep it that way. If you do want to see it in person, you can come down. If you're ever in the Noonan area, come down to my hobby shop and check it out because it always lives there. And now, with all the technology that I have available to me and my skills improved and so on, I'd rather just leave this as is on a shelf and build myself a new truck with a 4-stroke engine in it.